Here's what I say. If you look through the whole Bible, like what is the point of life according to the Bible? If I could boil it down, I would say this. The point of all of it is the glory of God. All right. Good to see you guys today. I want to welcome not only our Henderson location, but Central Summerlin and Central Sunrise Mountain. Good to have you guys. It's our Central Kingman family. Thank you so much for being with us. And Central Aliante as well. Glad that you are with us today. Think with me for a moment about the last time you felt defeated. The last time you felt defeated. Now, for some of you, that may have been just this last week during the Super Bowl. We had a little Super Bowl gathering at our house. We had, friends over, family over, and my mother and father-in-law are huge Chiefs fans. I mean, they got the jerseys on, Mahomes, the whole thing. So it was a pretty defeated moment during the Super Bowl. Our house kind of had a blanket laid over it there during the game. Definitely a sense of being defeated. Of course, if you're a Drake fan, then after the Kendrick Lamar halftime show, you definitely feel defeated. Surely this thing is over now. It's got to be over at this point. Maybe if you're, this last week was Valentine's Day, and maybe you're looking at your social media feed. If you're going through a tough relational time, or you've been through some loss or breakup, like it could be really, you can feel defeated. You're seeing all these happy, shiny people out there, going on dates and hanging out and posting all their love and all of that, and you're like, ugh. Yeah, come on. Feel defeated. My wife calls it forced affection day. You can feel defeated for a lot of reasons. Some of us, we made a lot of goals going into the new year, things we wanted to accomplish and achieve, but, we're already not doing those goals and not accomplishing those things, and it's pretty frustrating. You can feel defeated with health issues that just continue to nag you in your life. Sometimes spiritually you can feel defeated. You just keep praying and asking God for things, and you don't really see movement yet in those areas, and it's easy to just start to feel defeated. And if I'm really honest with you, sometimes I feel defeated for no reason at all. There's no real reason. Like, I shouldn't feel defeated, I just do. And so it's interesting when you get to the book of Revelation, the last book of the New Testament of the Bible, it is written to a group of people who are wrestling with feeling defeated. These are followers of Jesus who are in a tough time in their lives. The Roman emperor has been persecuting Christians. Many of the Christian leaders have already died. Paul and Peter have been killed for their faith. John, the disciple that Jesus loved, has been exiled to a prison camp island, the Isle of Patmos. And this is where he has this incredible revelation that's written down as the last book of our New Testament of the Bible, the book of Revelation. And we've been looking at it over the last several weeks, but we can't forget this. As we look at Revelation, and we're going to look at some pretty far out there stuff today, but as we're looking at it, the context of Revelation is it is written to people who feel defeated. And they need hope. And the hope that they need is found in Jesus. And so the book of Revelation is written to give encouragement. It's written to give hope. It's written to remind people, even if you feel defeated right now, even if you're suffering right now, even if it's hard right now, God is still in control. God is still with you. God still loves you. God hasn't abandoned you. This is the point of the book of Revelation. And one of the things we've talked about over the last several weeks is that a lot of times when people come to the book of Revelation, we think, well, it's like a book that's meant to scare us. But we've seen that it's actually a book that's meant to bless us. It's the only book in the entire Bible that promises a blessing if you read it, right? And then if you go on, it's not only meant to bless us. A lot of people just think the book of Revelation is about the end of the world. But the truth is, the book of Revelation is fundamentally about Jesus' victory and how his victory will bring about the renewal of the new heavens and the new earth. So it's meant to bless us. It's meant to encourage us. And we've been diving into it the last several weeks. Now, we've asked the question the last few weeks, are we living in the end times? And we've said, yes, we are. And I actually believe we have been for the last 2,000 years. And I think that's consistent with Christian teaching all through the New Testament and over the last 2,000 years. We've also looked at, and if you missed these messages, go check them out. We've looked at how, some people will ask, do we know when Jesus is returning? And the answer to that question is no. Nobody knows the date or the hour. But we should live with a sense of expectation that he could come back at any moment. That kind of expectation expectation should drive us forward. And we've talked about all the ways that God is moving around the world and just some of the amazing things that he's doing. And it's, you certainly look at all of this and feel like God is doing something new. And we need to live with a sense of urgency in our lives. Week 1 of this teaching series, Are We Living in the End Times? We looked at Revelation chapter 1, and we looked at the power of Christ for all of our lives and the point of the book of Revelation. Last week, Pastor Nick gave an amazing message on Revelation chapters 2 and 3, which are the letters of Jesus to the 7 historical churches in Asia Minor. And it has a message for us today, but it's originally written for them. And Nick did an incredible job of unpacking that and really challenging us to be the church community that Jesus would approve, that Jesus would be proud of. And if you missed that message, it's one of his all-time bests. I'm telling you, go back and listen to that message from last weekend. It's amazing. This week we're going to be in Revelation chapter 4. And Revelation chapter 4 is fascinating because it's going to remind us of who God is, even if we're suffering or struggling, and of the power of worship in our lives. So Revelation chapter 4, let's bring the scripture up. We'll read it here together. When I get to the red word, if you'll just say that real loud here with me. Revelation 4, John writes, "Then as I looked, I saw a door standing open in heaven, and the same voice I had heard before spoke to me like a trumpet blast. The voice said, 'Come up here, and I will show you what must happen after this.' And instantaneously I was in the Spirit, and I saw a throne in heaven and someone sitting on it." So John has this vision of heaven. Anytime he says, then as I looked, you'll see this phrase recur several times in Revelation. It's like we're moving now to a new theme or a new part of the vision. And in this case, Jesus has been walking among the churches, speaking to the churches in the 7 letters. He gets to chapter 4, and now heaven opens up. Now, this is prophecy, y'all. There's a reason a lot of churches never teach the book of Revelation. It's really hard to understand, and it gets really weird really fast. Okay, just so we're all on the same page. But what he says is, I looked, I saw a door opened into heaven, and he has this amazing vision in heaven. And the first thing he sees in heaven is a throne, a sign of power and authority, and it's God's throne. So the first thing he sees in heaven isn't like relatives that he loves that have gone before him, the things that we think about in heaven. It's not like, streets of gold or, like this beautiful, amazing scenery. The first thing he sees is a throne because it's a reminder that God is on the throne. And remember, it's written to Christians. Right now, what they know is Caesar is on the throne, and Caesar is killing us. And John's like, hey, God is on the throne. It's the first thing I see, and his throne is greater than any earthly throne. So what do we do with all this? Well, if you're discouraged or defeated or frustrated, you got to remember God is on the throne. Remember, he's on the throne. I think sometimes we forget who we're in the presence of. Not only spiritually, sometimes we can do this with people. A couple weeks ago, I was at this event, and I saw this young guy walk in with his wife, and he had a hat on, and I thought, I recognize that guy. I think I know that guy. I thought he was like a young church planner, and I always try to go out of my way to be super encouraging to pastors and faith leaders, and especially younger ones. I want to encourage them somehow. So I walk up to him, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? I think we've met before. Like, you look really familiar, and I can tell immediately, like, it gets awkward real fast. And the guy next to me leans over, a friend of mine, and he's trying to bail me out of the situation. He goes, Judd, this is the quarterback of the Raiders. I'm like, oh, well, that's why you look familiar. Anyway, it was real awkward. It got worse from there. It was very embarrassing. But at least I got to meet him. There was that, right? Sometimes when it comes to God, I think, we're in the presence of God. We worship God. We claim to be followers of God. We believe in God. But I'm not sure we're always aware of whose presence we're really in. In other words, sometimes we think of God like Santa Claus, or God like a genie. You sort of rub the lamp, or God like this, old great-grandpa figure with gray hair who's just sort of, kind of loving and kind. And he is loving and kind. But Revelation is going to remind us that God is also powerful and in authority. And so check this out. Revelation 4, beginning in verse 3, the very next verse, he says, the one sitting on the throne was as what? brilliant as gemstones, like jasper and carnelian, and the glow of an emerald circled his throne like a rainbow. So John's seeing this amazing vision of God on his throne. And as he does, he brings out these different emeralds. And I think what he's trying to get at is the glory of God. Now, theologians have tried to unpack what these different gemstones mean and represent, and they all kind of point to different aspects of God's character. So let's sort of break it down here. Like on the one hand, he talks about jasmine, which is kind of like theologians would point to like a diamond kind of color, like pure, crystalline. It gets to the purity of God, his holiness, his power in our lives. Then he talks about carnelian or ruby, which gets to this whole idea of either the judgment of God, some say because of the red, or of the compassion of God through the cross of Jesus Christ and his bloodshed. Theologians will argue both ways. But I think it gets to the passion of God, that God is passionate for his people, that he loves his people, and that he's passionate against sin and the things that separate his people from him, and he's passionate for his people. So on the one hand, God is holy, he's pure, he's powerful. On the other hand, the Bible's, God says, in his own words, he says, I am a jealous God. He's not playing. He's passionate for his people. He loves with passion. And so ruby, and then another color is emerald. It talks about emerald, which usually represents like life and mercy, the mercy of God. Jesus says, I've come that you may have life and have it to the full. God comes to give us life. So God's a pure God. He's a passionate God. He's a merciful God. And then we read about the rainbow, which represents like the faithfulness of God. If you go to the Old Testament and Noah and the flood, after the flood, God says, I'll never destroy the world that way again. And he gives a rainbow as a sign of that, which was a picture of the faithfulness of God. God is faithful in his word. So for believers that are suffering and struggling, that are hearing revelation for the first time, what happens is John, as soon as he kind of takes us into the heavenly realm in his vision, we see this picture of God, pure, passionate, merciful, faithful, on his throne, large and in charge. And it's a reminder, listen, because God is on the throne, we're not alone, right? Because God's on the throne, we don't have to live in fear. Because God is on the throne, look, we can push back on worry. Because God's on the throne, we can find meaning and purpose. Because God's on the throne, world leaders and world events don't get the final say. Listen, because God's on the throne, we can rest in his victory. We can lean on him for his strength. We can pray to him for guidance. We can get up when we fall. We can take risks of faith. We can keep believing when it's hard. We can push through even when it feels impossible. We can keep going when others write us off. We can be strong even when we feel weak. Because God's on his throne, we can live for an audience of one. Look, our troubles are temporary, but his victory is forever. It's not going to be canceled. It's not going to be delayed. It's guaranteed by God himself. And so if you feel defeated, if you're frustrated, if you're struggling, just remember this image. God is large and in charge on his throne. He's pure. He's powerful. He's passionate. He's merciful. He is faithful. It's the first thing John sees. Amazing. And then we're challenged to worship the one who is worthy. We recognize who God is, but then we worship the one who is worthy. Every year there's this photography contest for the funniest nature photography of the year. And there's some really funny ones. This is the one that won this last year. It's called Stuck Squirrel. Check this out. Isn't that great? I feel like that sometimes. Somebody right now, that's your life right now, right? Poor guy. Some classics from other years would be this one. This one's called Shake, and it's a bulldog shaking his head and, spit's flying everywhere. And I can just tell you as a bulldog lover, this is very, very accurate. And then this one's got to be all time. This next one's called Monkey Selfie. And what this photographer did is he actually set up like a selfie station, and these monkeys would push the button, and this monkey took his own selfie. I mean, that's better than my selfies, that's amazing. Great images. And what John is about to do in Revelation is take us into the throne room of heaven and give us powerful images of the God that we serve and inspire us to worship him in our lives. So check this out. Revelation chapter 4, beginning of verse 4, it says, 24 thrones surrounded him, and 24 elders sat on them. They were all clothed in white and had gold what? Crowns on their heads. So 24 thrones surround him, 24 elders sit on them. So who are the 24 elders sitting around the throne of God? Well, we don't really know. Like for 2,000 years, this has been debated. Some people have said, well, maybe these represent all of humanity. Other people have said, well, you have the 12 apostles, and then you have the 12 representing the 12 tribes of Israel, and therefore you get to 24. Other people are like, well, maybe they're not even human, right? So a lot of debate, a lot of discussion, but here's what you do have is you have them sitting around the throne and you have them worshiping God, and they've got crowns on their heads, which does align with the fact that we do have a promise, if you're a follower of Jesus today, that you will one day be glorified with Jesus, and you will one day experience reward in your own life. You will one day be elevated by God. You were made in that sense for that glory, and God will glorify you in your life. And so we see them sitting around the throne in this incredible moment. And then John goes on and he describes, it gets really weird. He says there's 4 creatures. One of them has the head of an ox, one has the head of a lion, one has the head of a human, and one has the head of something else. Ox, lion, human, there's another one. There's 4 of them. Eagle, thank you. Wow, man, boom. That's what I'm talking about. Don't mess with the Central family. They know their Bibles. An eagle, and they've got eyes all around them, front, back. They've got wings. Each of them have wings. There's eyes all over the wings, and these 4 creatures are around the throne. And you say, well, what is all of that about? Well, these are powerful, mighty creatures. They kind of look less like angels and more like maybe cherubim or seraphim, which you read about in the Old Testament, which these creatures that like guard and protect, like the throne room of God or his work. And so here's these creatures. Symbolically in the ancient Near East, like eyes would have represented this like total awareness. The wings would have represented incredible speed and agility. And then you have like these different animals, the ox, the eagle, all of these animals that represent the power and strength of the created order. In other words, these are powerful beings. And what are they doing? This is what they do. Revelation chapter 4, verse 8 tells us, day after day and night after night, they keep on saying, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God, the what? The Almighty. You see this? The Almighty, the one who always was, who is, and who is still to come. And so day after day, night after night, they're declaring the holiness of God. It's like this. You ever get an earworm? You ever get a song stuck in your head and it just keeps playing on and on and on? Like I had one yesterday. I drove my wife crazy walking around the house, and it was from Instagram. I just saw this reel, and so I walked around all day, and I'm just like, won't you take me to Funky Town? Won't you take me to Funky Town, right? Like, you're going to think it. Somebody's going to be thinking about that all night. You're welcome. It's a gift from your pastor. All day I walked around, you take me to, and I'm dancing. Lori's like, stop. I'm gonna get in trouble even after this. But this is like the thing that's on repeat in heaven, right? It's not one, although it is a little bit funky when you read Revelation. This is not Funky Town. This is holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. That phrase, holy, 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 we see all through the Old Testament. The word holy in the original Hebrew language means to cut or to separate. And so holy just means that God is a cut above. He's separate. He's not like us. He's other. And in Hebrew, when you have something mentioned to the 3rd degree, it's exaggerated. It's like he's not just holy. He's not just holy, holy. He's actually like holy, holy, holy. Right? Like to the 3rd degree. No other character or attribute of God, characteristic or attribute of God, is exalted to the 3rd degree. Like nowhere does it say God is love, love, love. Nowhere does the Bible, in the Bible will you find it say God is justice, justice, justice. Right? But we do read that he is holy, and not just holy, he's holy, holy, and not even just holy, holy, he's holy, holy, holy. He's other. He's in a whole other category of power and purity. That's who God is. So they worship in their holiness. And you go on, Revelation chapter 4, beginning in verse 10, it says the 24, so when these living beings say this, it says the 24 elders fall down and what? Worship the one sitting on the throne, the one who lives forever and ever. And they lay their crowns before the throne, and they say, you are worthy, O Lord our God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and they exist because you created what you pleased. So you have this amazing, and this is Revelation chapter 4. We just covered the whole thing. So what you see when you go into the throne room of heaven is God on his throne in power. Caesar may be on his throne, earthly leaders may be on their thrones, but God is still on his throne. Life may be hard, it may be difficult, things may feel overwhelming, but God is still on the throne. You may be suffering, you may be struggling, you may be going through it right now, but God is still on the throne. And so what's our response to that? We worship like the elders worship, like the 24. They come, do you notice this? They come off their throne, right? They put down their crown at the feet of God and his throne, and they worship him. You want to know what the key to life is? In my experience, it's you got to get off your throne so that you bow down and worship God on his throne. Some of us need to get up off our backsides and bow the knee and acknowledge God in his power and in his goodness in our lives. It's easy to put myself on the throne of my life. I got to fight that tendency all the time. It's easy for me to think, come on somebody, life is about me. It's about how I feel. It's about am I happy or not. Some of us, we judge our faith by how we feel. Do I feel happy right now? Is God blessing me right now? Are things good right now? Did I like the music this weekend? Was the message any good? Like, it's all like it's about us. It's about how we feel. And the picture we see in heaven is the 24 rise up, bow down, and acknowledge. It's not about us, God. It's about you. You created every living thing, and you created it for your own pleasure. We just read it together, right? Here's what I say. If you look through the whole Bible, like what is the point of life according to the Bible? If I could boil it down, I would say this. The point of all of it is the glory of God. We were created to worship him, to enjoy him forever, to glorify him. And these elders drop down. God is on the throne. They are not. They put their crowns before him. All of our accomplishments, all that we did, all the good things, all of our good deeds, all of that stuff, ultimately we lay it all down before God and we say, God, you're first. You're number one. We worship you. We acknowledge you. And that worship, man, it gives you power and strength to keep going in the struggle. How did the early church community endure decades and some seasons and even potentially centuries and others of persecution and hardship? They worshiped through it. They worshiped through it. They remembered God was on his throne, and like these elders, they got off their throne, they bowed before him, they put their crowns before him, if you will, their accomplishments, and they said, God, we worship you and we acknowledge you. And what I found in my life is if I will worship God in the good times and the bad, if I'll worship him on the mountain and in the valley, if I'll worship him when things are going my way and the blessings are flowing, and I'll worship him when things have dried up and it seems like there's no blessing for days. If I will worship him through it all, God will give me the strength to keep walking and keep following and keep persevering, God willing, to the end. So we worship and it gives us strength. We worship and it gives us perspective. We worship. What does it mean to worship? Well, the word worship could literally be translated to bow down. So we bow metaphorically, spiritually, literally. We acknowledge God as first. We worship him. We do it when we come to church. We do it when we sing. We do it when we lift our voices. But we remember when we come to church, it's not about us. It's not even about how we feel. It's about the one who is worthy. It's about joining with heaven and declaring, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty who was and is to come. And we acknowledge him. And then that gives us the power to move forward with courage in our lives. And that's what chapter 4 was meant to do to the first audience who first read it, to get courage, to keep fighting and moving forward in their life. Reminds me of this amazing piece that was found in this young pastor's office in Zimbabwe. Brennan Manning put this in one of his books. It's called The Fellowship of the Unashamed. And this pastor had written this down as his declaration in a time when they were suffering and under persecution. And I want to read it to you because I think this is the kind of response you get from Revelation chapter 4. It says this. It says, the die has been cast, the decision has been made, I have stepped over the line. I won't look back, let up, slow down, back away, or be still. My past has been redeemed, my present makes sense, and my future is secure. I'm finished and done with low living, sight walking, small planning, smooth knees, colorless dreams, tamed visions, mundane talking, cheap giving, and dwarfed goals. I no longer need preeminence, position, promotions, plaudits, or popularity. I don't have to be right, first, tops, recognized, praised, regarded, or rewarded. I now live by faith. I lean on His presence. I love with patience. I live by prayer. I labor with love. My face is set, my gait is fast, my goal is heaven, my road is narrow, my way is rough, my companions are few, but my guide is reliable, and my mission is clear. I cannot be bought, compromised, detoured, lured away, turned back, deluded, or delayed. I will not flinch in the face of sacrifice, or hesitate in the presence of adversity, or negotiate at the table of the enemy, or ponder at the pool of popularity, or meander in the maze of mediocrity. I won't give up, shut up, let up, or slow up until I have stayed up, stored up, prayed up, paid up, and spoken up for the cause of Christ. He writes, I am a disciple of Jesus. I must go till He comes. I must give till I drop. I must preach till all know. I must work till He stops me. And when He comes for His own, He will have no problem recognizing me. My banner is clear. My banner is clear. Friends, I ask you today, if Christ returns, is our banner clear? Will He have to wonder, or will it be so obvious that we worship and we believe and we trust and we follow? God's already won the victory over whatever has you feeling discouraged. He's still on His throne. So worship, lift Him up, and find your strength and your hope and your meaning and purpose there.